4 billion people live across this vast continent called Asia. And we are telling their stories. On this edition, Religion Meets Academia. How madrasahs are molding the next generation of Muslim community leaders in Singapore and spreading the message of peace.
The extremists, they misuse the concept of Islam for their own wants. Okay, so it's our duty to tackle this problem bit by bit.
And rapping against extremism. Some musicians in Lebanon are using their songs to counter radicalism and unite communities. I'm Miro Lu, and this is Assignment Asia. Welcome to the program. Along with the rise of terrorist groups like ISIL, Muslims in different parts of the world have been unfairly stigmatized. That has spurred efforts by Muslim communities to emphasize Islam's key message of peace in educating future generations of the faithful at madrasahs or Islamic schools. There are 6 madrasahs here in Singapore, each immersing its students in a rigorous academic and religious curriculum. As I witnessed in one institution, students are also taught to become ambassadors of Islam as a religion of peace. It's 7 a.m. and the children are heading to school. But unlike other mainstream schools in Singapore, this school starts their day a little differently. Literally translated from the word school in Arabic, this is a madrasah, a full-time Islamic religious institution.
For pre-levels, we take about 14 subjects, which includes comparative religion. We study Islamic jurisprudence. We study Arabic language, which is a must, the Quran, and many things.
So usually my school starts at around 7:30 with the normal morning assembly that all schools in Singapore have. And then after that, we study until maybe around 10:45, and then there will be recess, of course. And then afterwards, we study until 1:30. And then at 1:30, we actually have our Zohor prayers, which is our afternoon prayers.
With only 6 madrasahs in the city-state and students capped at 400 per year, getting into a primary level madrasah is not easy. Despite its stringent criteria and rigorous education structure, some parents still opt to send their children to madrasahs.
There are those who feel that they want to make sure that the children grow up or learn in an Islamic environment, an environment that gives the children the necessary practice, the necessary exposure to the values, to the virtues of the religion. And there are those who just feel that they want to give their children the opportunity to learn a dual curriculum.
And with Southeast Asia becoming more radicalized, madrasahs shoulder another responsibility to help its students combat radicalism.
The issue of radicalism or exclusivism, when you look at the typical curriculum that's being taught at the madrasahs, those are issues which truly a madrasah student would have the necessary skills and knowledge to overcome. And that's very important, not just because of the current climate, but because the message of the religion and the teachings of the religion has to be given the forefront.
Once they put on their school uniform and headgear, madrasah students like Haziq and Hanani are not just representing their school, they're also representing Islam.
Nowadays, people keep thinking that Muslims and Islams are related to terrorism. But I think the people who actually does this terrorism, they might misunderstand the sentences in the Quran and actually think that it means to terrorize. But no, Islam is all about peace. I think that if on social media especially, we are to correct others, because this misunderstanding has spread all over the world because of the terrorists. But then we as madrasah students are responsible to help and teach them.
The extremists, they misuse the concept of Islam for their own wants lah. Okay, so it's our duty to tackle this problem bit by bit. We do have our programs, exchange programs with other schools, okay, in order to integrate well with others and in order to find the common things within us.
For private Islamic religious teacher Ustazah Alania, who is also a PhD candidate in Islamic civilization, the most important element in the battle against radicalism is the teachers.
In combating radical ideologies or extremism, a lot of people have to play their roles. I mean, in this case, I think teachers plays the most important role. What has to be done is that teachers have to still continue to seek knowledge, deepen their knowledge about Islam, and also to keep abreast of the development today. For now, I think they have to learn beyond the religious text. They have to learn beyond the subject that they taught at school. Because, you know, nowadays students have a lot of questions, and their questions are really challenging.
She also believes that madrasahs and the Islamic teachers in Singapore have proven their positive impact in the fight against extremism.
I would confidently say that the fact that we do not have any madrasah students who ended up, you know, being or joined in these activities or the extremism, this is actually a quite positive indicator, which means that those who have becoming radicalized is not from the madrasah. So in short, madrasah is not the breed for terrorism. It's far away from that. Okay. We can also see how the religious scholars themselves is helping those people who have been radicalized or in the group, helping them to understand Islam better.
Ustazah Alania received higher religious education in Egypt and Malaysia and did her master's studies on the relationship between states and the madrasah.
I think how madrasah plays its role in Singapore is that, unlike the other madrasah probably in some other countries, what makes our madrasah system itself is because our fabric of community overall. I mean, because our community itself, Singaporean, consists of multi-religious, multi-faith. That itself has actually made us learn about living coexistence peacefully together with them. I would safely say that we have a balanced curriculum over here. The full-time madrasah, basically, the students have to learn both the Islamic subject, Islamic studies, and also the technical or the secular subjects. So as young as primary school, they have already learned English, maths, science, and when they are in secondary level, they are just like the normal national school students.
Since primary 1, madrasah students are exposed to a dual curriculum which combines secular with religious learning.
Still downloading the programming.
Fadila, who used to teach in mainstream schools for 2 decades, says he now finds joy at the madrasah in being able to link his religion with the subjects that he teaches.
Your motto, right? Basically, why I joined madrasah is because it's the heart. I feel it's the heart. You feel the satisfaction is there because I find it very satisfying to teach science, to show the science of science. Position. Understand what I'm trying to say? Okay? The children can draw a relationship between what is in the Quran, the religion, and what is known in science. Good.
To complement its dual curriculum, madrasah students often engaged in out-of-class activities with a focus on ensuring a holistic education. Pre-university students like Haziq and Hanani are now at a crossroad. They have to choose between whether to continue on a religious or academic path.
A few of my friends, after O-levels, decided to pursue their studies in polytechnics. I think it's good because in a way we are spreading the message of Islam in different means. Just because you're studying religious subjects doesn't mean you have to become an ustazah. Doesn't mean that you have to go to the University of Azhar or the University of Jordan. You can also become a doctor and engineer. If I were to pursue the Islamic religious stream, I would probably go for the Sharia law because that one is actually quite interesting. It's about the Islamic laws and like the do's and don'ts. That way I can actually be an Islamic lawyer.
Quite a number of them do leave the school system at their O levels to join in the national institutions. So they go to poly or they go to the JCs or they just go to other religious institutions. But generally, I would say about almost 60 to 70% of our students continue with the religious studies up to university level. Some of them also move out to totally different areas, whether it's social work, it's teaching in national schools, pursuing a science-related career. So at the end of the day, I think for madrasah education, it's really about ensuring that they would have good quality jobs to come back to and that the training that they have received would allow that. So the quality jobs from the religious sector would be for them to come back in to be religious teachers, as imams or as preachers. Because of the 12-year exposure that they have to the religion, many of them are very inspired to find out more and to really go deep into the religious learning. They would come back and serve the various institutions in Singapore.
This virtuous cycle of students coming back to serve in the Islamic institutions in Singapore is crucial in keeping the values of Islam relevant in both society and the battle against extremism.
I remember that this issue of radical ideologies or extremism started, I think, since 2008. Of course, back then it wasn't about internet much or social media much. Now then it's the social media. So we can anticipate in 10 years' time what are probably the challenges that the students or our people are facing. Yeah, we need to always keep progressive, and that is what Islam is all about, to always be progressive and to keep abreast in the development and also to see what is important for that current time and for the future.
Armed with their madrasah education, these youth are prepared not only for their future, they're also confident of their role in bringing about greater interreligious and cultural understanding both within Singapore and beyond. Singapore is said to be looking into the possibility of setting up an Islamic college to train a new generation of what it calls homegrown religious leaders. These teachers will hopefully be in a better position to understand the country's as well as the region's multiracial and multi-religious context. Coming up, how some artists in Lebanon are turning music into a weapon against extremism.
Stories of hope, triumph, innovation, and change. We uncover the truth and go great lengths to tell a story. Get to know ordinary people with extraordinary stories and see Asia from an Asian perspective. This is Assignment Asia. Expect the unexpected.
Culture Express. See the world in color.
The Middle East has for many years been struggling with instability, war, and a rising tide of Islamic radicalism. But it's also a region where some individuals are doing their part to fight extremist ideologies. In Lebanon, Natalie Carney met artists who are using their music to explore the root cause of radicalism and push back against it.
Saturday night in downtown Beirut.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hip Hop Essentials 101.
It's the 5th anniversary of Hip Hop Essentials at the bar Radio Beirut.
This is the first beat of the night or what?
And it's packed.
Yes.
For the past 5 years, one of the main acts here has been a rap artist named Chyno.
Yes. The man Chyno, who's been here from day one.
He recently gained notoriety for songs that gave a raw insight into political, religious, and ideological extremism. A sensitive, if not taboo, topic in this part of the world.
Mr. Hadidi, all I need is that beat, sir. Got a panini and I'm trying to go ham again. Rick Medina told me gotta go with beef first. Welcome to Ramadan, but doing Easter.
Chyno's first solo single, OPP, was so controversial, he says radio stations refused to play it.
This 23-year-old man is reading his will.
Some people think that I'm shedding too much light on the dark spots of our environment or our world, and especially in places like Lebanon where they might feel like we're on the borderline economically, socially, so they'd rather me talk about great things about Beirut and not really shed too much light on the bad stuff.
I'm taking my life away, they try to take it anyway, right? Shit, then I make my family more than my job will ever pay, right? One of the evil bitches up all morning, they see myself on heaven's gate. Don't see a better way to die, might as well be the day, right?
Chyno, who raps in both English and Arabic, writes music intended to shock the listener in an effort to raise awareness of the root cause of extremism, even as many think it puts the region and its predominant religion in a bad light.
With 250 kilograms of explosives.
In the song, the chorus is like, I am the fisherman or the hunter, you were the butcher. Let's go to jihad, you know, and let's go for the calling, you know. I like making music in first-person narrative. Like in OPP, it was the perspective of a suicide bomber. I've done songs with child soldiers and their perspectives, so I felt like it's a more powerful way because you're describing emotions and feelings and anger, and it has to be provocative, it has to be polarizing. I have to reflect my environment, and if people don't like how I see my environment, then that's on them, and you just have to be courageous enough to cross lines and push yourself.
By working with psychiatrists, Chyno says he understands his environment much better and why people turn towards extremist activity.
There is a big social, political, economical dilemma, you know, so it makes them ripe for the catch. It's just your options are so limited or so minimal. Where are you going to go with it, you know? And you have these options in front of you. You know, so psychiatrist was important, having actual research that we use as references. So these individuals are in jail for allegedly doing terrorist, you know, activity or extremist activity, and they would have research profiles on them. All this where we felt was important to understand the situation and treat it very fairly.
Born Nasser Shobaji to a Filipino mother and Syrian father, and having grown up in Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon much of his life, he says he too knows what it's like to feel excluded.
Me being Syrian and Filipino made me not really fit in both those backgrounds or in the Middle East or Asia, because I don't look Arab to Arabs and I don't look Filipino to Filipinos. And I think that made me gravitate towards hip-hop in a very strong way. So this feeling of alienation that I had and have 30 years of experience, this disadvantage of mine growing up became a strong point in how I wrote my music. I do conscious hip-hop, and I will always make music that reflects my environment. I mean, art does imitate life.
More and more artists like Chyno are now using music not only to fight that close-minded ideology, but also to help heal it.
Well, you know, music works both ways. Extremists also use music to fulfill their propaganda or to gain followers. We use it, you know, as the counter to them. You know, we use it for love and for tolerance and for bringing people together and getting young people off the street to do something more interesting and more valuable with their time.
And that's exactly what's going on in the country's second biggest city, Tripoli, known to have its fair share of problems with radical ideology. Chyno's project aims at highlighting the conditions of disenfranchised youths, such as those here in the northern Lebanese city of Tripoli. But it's here where we met some of those disenfranchised youths who themselves are creating music in an attempt to give their life meaning. There was a time when these boys were literally at war with each other. Half of this table grew up in the Tripoli neighborhood of Jabal Mohsen, and the other half in Bab al-Tabani, two communities locked in an armed conflict for years over opposing political affiliations in Syria. The conflict has killed more than 200 people in the past 8 years, according to international figures. Most of these guys are also unemployed. According to the United Nations, more than half of Tripoli's population is impoverished. Difficult conditions have made it a breeding ground for conflict and extremism.
How's the life now? If you just take a look, just check the electrical cables. You go into one shop, there's no electricity. You go into another shop, it doesn't have water. Bad phones connection, bad internet. The living circumstances are really bad. Maybe I'll pick a gun, maybe I'll pick my own battles, and when you're full of frustration and when you're deprived, you're ready to fight.
Mohammed Sarhan is a project manager for the NGO March, which has been working in Tripoli since 2014. They are trying to reconcile youth who are in conflict with one another through creative collaborations, such as music.
When you're working in music, it's something different because it's coming from a feeling. You're making music, you're writing your own lyrics, you're singing. If you don't have a good voice, you go to rap.
Rap gives these boys a powerful outlet to vent their frustrations.
And rap, in a way or another, it's always like walking in parallel with anger. And those people have a lot of anger inside of them for the circumstances they were living in, for what was happening around them, how they couldn't be able to move forward in their lives because of the area they come from, how they live.
يا ربي يا معين انت القادر عبدك صابر الله على كل مين ومين نزلين بتروب نصف فيها النجر ونسبة البطالة 90% كفر والباقي في شيء بدك تعمله سهل؟ لا تمام؟
Ihab Mehli has witnessed a lot of fighting in his neighborhood Tabani. He says he escaped all this by diving into music.
نظريتي عن الوقت اللي مرق قبل وعن المعارك اللي صارت قبل انه كانوا عم يزرعوا الحقد والكره بين قلوب الشباب وبتعرف كمان يعني هون ما كان في شغل ويعني التقصير بحق الشغل يجوا يعطوهم مصاري مقابل انهم يحاربوا هيدا كمان شيء يعني تاثير على النفسيه تبعيتهم وخصوصي عم تحكي راب يعني عم تحكي وجع اكيد معروف انه الراب رساله ووجع الشخص هو بيكون عم يغني بده يوصله للناس اكثر.
He now works at March, teaching youth from both communities how to write music.
هلا نحن لما عادة يعني كرابرز لما بنكتب غنية نحن بنكون عم نكتب غنية عن وضعنا نحن، يعني نحن شو عم نحس أو نحن شو عم نعيش بحياتنا اليومية أو بمنطقتنا. هيدا الشيء خلانا أكثر كمان نوصل رسالتنا للعالم اللي عم تحس نفس الشعور اللي نحن عم نحسه، يعني إذا نحن مزعوجين كثير من المعارك اللي كانت عم بتصير قبل، في كثير ناس وشباب مثلي أو مثل غيري حابين كمان يغيروا هيدا الشيء، يعني صاروا يسمعوا أكثر، يفهموا أكثر يعني شو عم يصير، يتفتحوا أكثر من وراء الأغاني والموسيقى، وكمان طبعاً أنت بتعرف إنه الموسيقى بتلعب على إحساس البني آدم.
Bilal, who is also from Tabani, says he understands why people turn to radical ideology.
كوضع اقتصادي هلا أكثر منطقة بالشرق الأوسط هي على إنه على جوع وفقر، فما في شيء حتى يعملوه. انه خد لك سلاح يلا روح حارب وكذا قاتل خد وقف ورا دشمي يا زلمه قوس. طيب عم تقوس انت على مين عم تقوس؟ يمكن يكون رفيقك يمكن يكون اخوك ما بتعرف مين شو عم تعمل. هلا انا لما اكتب حاول قد ما فيني نفهم الناس انه هذا الشيء غلط ولا توقع بمصيبه غيرك بتهون عليك. في كثير ناس عايشه بالسجون لهلا بعدها من 3-4 سنين لهلا بقصص ما لها علاقه فيها.
When you are listening to their problems, when they are voicing out their problems, when they are starting to express their problems, we know that they are not expressing their anger and their fear and their frustration in a different way. And we always count on this.
Mohammed's organization has not only given Tripoli's youth the opportunity to produce music, but has also employed some in this cafe. Ultimately, it has brought communities here together.
Getting them to know each other, getting them to know how they were living, they started to realize that they are very similar. They are living the same lives. They are suffering from the same things that they are feeling around them, and they started to feel that they are close to each other.
Back in Beirut, Chyno's music was used for the Arabic web series The Misled by Labiba Productions. It tells the raw, drawn-out story of a young man facing the temptations of radical extremism.
I don't know if music really fights extremism, but culture does, you know. Just making people aware of a certain situation, and you combat it by attitude and being positive in life and understanding the situation. It's not a gun, it's more like a shield.
Music brings people together. It raises awareness, it raises tolerance, it brings communities together. Not so long ago, there was a civil war happening just down the street. And now you see, all walks of Lebanese life mingling in one space. And, for the love of music. So, in a way, music is a weapon for good.
In Lebanon, a country with a deep history of civil war and where political and religious divisions make it susceptible to conflict, music has given younger generations an outlet to promote peace and understanding. For Assignment Asia, I'm Natalie Carney in Lebanon.
The rap artist has vowed to continue writing lyrics that offer insights into the world around him, while the rappers at March have started to train a younger generation of musicians. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Miro Lu in Singapore. Thanks for watching, and join us again on Assignment Asia. Share your thoughts and contribute story ideas for future shows by contacting us on social media.